It's my turn to introduce Dr. Laurie Marker. She has done an incredible job preserving and learning more about the cheetah. She started working in 1977. I maybe should not say it. And since 1990, she funded the Cheetah Conservation Fund in Namibia, and she's doing an incredible job that is inspiring many, many of us. So welcome, Dr. Laurie Marker.
Thank you. Again, it's great to be here and to talk with you more about what's been going on at Cheetah Conservation Fund. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges facing cheetahs. I think it's always important to remind us, as well as understanding about their research and the education activities that we have going on, and really what the future looks like, because there are workable solutions in long-term conservation. And yes, I've been at this for a very long time. I've been working with cheetahs for about 40 years, and long-term conservation takes a long time, and thank goodness I got good genes and plan to keep going for a lot longer. Thank you. And growing lots of great other young conservationists, I think, around the world. Just to remind you how beautiful the cheetah is, and all of us cat people think our cats are the most beautiful. Being the fastest land animal, every part of their body is built for speed. But they're not a powerful and aggressive animal. They are an animal that runs fast in very short distances. But they are Africa's most endangered of all the big cats. I started working with cheetahs from a wildlife park in Oregon, where we were one of the few places in the world that had cheetahs. I helped develop the most successful breeding program in the United States. And back in 1977, I ended up in Namibia, Africa, to find out if a captive-born cheetah could learn how to hunt. And so I took a cheetah that was born in Oregon and ended up in war-torn Southwest Africa, where the country was trying to get its independence. And here I was taking a cheetah that was like Coles to Newcastle to a country where farmers thought cheetahs were vermin, and they thought I was nuts. Well, so then I kept going back. And not only did I keep going back, at their independence in 1990, I actually set up the foundation and moved there. And I moved there and drove around the entire country with that old Land Rover, which still works, lots of baling wire, and one of my best friends. And used that car to get to know the farming communities and to really find out what the systems were all about and why farmers were killing 800 to 900 cheetahs per year. So what do we see for the future, the cheetahs? And I just want to share with you a little bit about kind of the cheetahs. They have a short gestation of about 3 months, and a mother can have up to 6 cubs, 4 to 5 are most average. These are very, very rare photographs. Susie spent about 3 years in East Africa taking pictures of several families and following the mothers with the cubs. Female cheetahs are trying to move their cubs away from danger, lions and leopards, so in the nest, and it's called a nest because cheetahs have a bird-like chirp, and that's how they communicate. But with this timing, the mother is hunting, she's on her own, there's a very high loss of the cubs at that point in time. So within the game reserves, we see about a 90% loss of cheetah cubs from a lot of the conflicts with lions and hyenas. But as the cubs do start growing, there's a lot of time that mother teaches the cubs to hunt, and that's what cheetahs are doing, are constantly looking out for where the antelope are, and the cubs want to look just like mom, and so they're looking. They don't quite know what she's looking at because they'd much rather go play. And so when they get tired of looking, then they start playing. And then mom's fortunately got this great long tail that also uses it as a rudder for balance so they don't roll over and spin out when they're going 70 miles an hour. But she can twitch that and the cubs can be taken care of while she's still looking out for prey. Now, as the cubs start growing up, they do start learning how to hunt, usually at about 8 months of age, but they're not still skilled hunters until they're leaving mom over 18 to 20 months of age. As they do make kills, they have to eat very rapidly. From eating rapidly, they're not a powerful animal. And so lions and hyenas and jackals and vultures are all pushing the cheetah from their kill. So they have to eat very rapidly. Well, that means if the cheetah's made a kill and you have enough wildlife on your land for that to happen, the jackal can come in, you can feed the entire veld that you might be in conflict with, and then that jackal's not going to be in your sheep yard catching your sheep, and then you can live in harmony with nature. But there are other challenges. And this is one of my favorite pictures of Susie because cats hate water, right? All of you probably have cats, and they just look so like, oh my God, it's raining. Well, that's because where most of the cheetahs live, it's in a very arid environment. There's not a lot of rain in the areas where cheetahs are found. So our desert environments are dry. And as we're looking at climate change throughout, we're looking at even drier climates. And from this, we're actually been partnering up with the Polar Bears International to try to share with people that from melting sea ice to that arid environments, every species in between is actually going to be challenged. Other challenges occur with lions stealing their food. And without all of Africa where the cheetahs found, there are only about 10 game reserves that are large enough that cheetahs are actually found in. Today in sub-Saharan Africa, where the only 10,000 cheetahs are remaining, are about 1.2 billion people. And in the next about 30 years, our population is going to grow to about 2.2 billion. And with that, all of these people have 100, 200 head of cattle, lots of goats and sheep, and so those livestock numbers are also going to be increasing. And most of the farmers that we work with that are found in the areas throughout Africa where the cheetahs are found, they're very poor. And so the cheetahs found in some of the poorest lands there are, in some of the most arid land. And one of the points of having arid land, when you have cattle, goats on the land, we end up with desertification occur, or sandy deserts become more sandy. But another point with a form of desertification is that we end up with a habitat switch. And we've seen our open savanna lands where the cheetah has actually been found going into thick and thorn-bushed areas. And we study this habitat and this habitat change. And if those of you who have been to Africa, you know our thorn bushes are pretty horrible. They will scratch you, they'll scratch your clothes or rip your clothes. And will actually, imagine being a cheetah running 70 miles an hour through that land and trying to actually look at the prey that you're hunting and not scratch your eyes or get thorn bushes in your paws or your body. So this thick and thorn bush has become quite a problem, not just in Namibia, but through many of our arid landscapes throughout Africa. Another problem that occurs then is if your livestock is out in the bush and it's not managed with a herder or a livestock guarding dog, then the animals can actually be picked off much easier by a predator, whether it be a cheetah or a jackal. And so livestock loss becomes a very big problem for predators. But cheetahs, like all the predators, we feed all the predators on the veld. But sadly, if cheetahs are seen and they are an animal that you can chase down easily, and I could tell you more than one way to catch a cat, they are oftentimes killed by the rural communities. So these are the big challenges that are faced. And although Susie's out taking lovely pictures of cheetahs in the Masai Mara, my life has been primarily saving cheetahs from capture cages where cheetahs have been caught by many of the farmers. This is the main way that cheetahs do get caught and removed from the farmlands, and then the farmers, after catching them in a trap, usually kill them. So a big question really is to ask, with this population growth in Africa, are there benefits to the African communities to have wildlife on their land? And what is really the economic value of conservation? And I think putting those two components together have been one of the big successes of the work that we have continued to do in Namibia for nearly 25 years. And I'd like to tell you what CCF is. We are the leading organization in the world that's dedicated to saving cheetahs in the wild. And from our base in Namibia, we work with all the other cheetah people and range countries throughout Africa. But we actually situated ourselves on a ranch. So when I went to Namibia And the ranchers, when I went door to door, they said, you ought to know what it's like to be a farmer. It's really horrible. And you'll kill all those cats too. And I said, well, you know, I am a farmer. I came from America, where I was a future farmer of Africa. As a matter of fact, I used to judge goats around the United States. Bet not many people here have done that. And so I said, well, fine, we'll settle down. And they said, if you go away, we're just going to start killing more cheetahs. And more people wanted to come and find out what we were doing. And so we set up a model farm. So we ranch our cattle, sheep, we raise livestock guarding dogs, and we're actually right in the heartland of where the largest population of cheetahs are. But we have a big vision. And our vision is to see a world in which cheetahs and humans live together with the environment. Because cheetahs are found outside of protected areas, people are a part of our program, and the environment has to work so that people and cheetahs can all be in harmony. I'd like to give you an idea of where cheetahs are found today. They're now found in these red areas, and the cheetah used to be found in the yellow areas. There were about 100,000 cheetahs about 100 years ago, so we've lost 90% of the population in the last 100 years. Today's world population is around 10,000 individuals, and I'm based down here in Namibia. Pointer, it says Namibia at the southern west coast, and we work very closely with our partners in Botswana and in Zimbabwe. So we've got the last large population. Namibia's population we've been able to double in nearly 25 years to about 3,500 individuals out of a world population of about 10,000. The next largest population is that of Kenya and Tanzania. And then these other areas over here in the west are small pocketed populations where they're very low in number, and we're very concerned about problems around small populations. And we also work together up in Iran, which is where the last of the Asian cheetah population are, and there are about 70 cheetahs remaining there. So we work with partners throughout all of the red area, and we're trying to link red areas together and grow more than just 10,000 cheetahs in the world. From our center, though, we are a sanctuary, so we've been able to stop farmers from catching and killing so many cheetahs, and with that we do end up with orphan cheetahs. We've got 40 orphans there right now. We have a veterinary clinic, a genetics lab, and one of the only genetics lab that's found outside of South Africa. We are a training facility, and so we train people from not only Namibia, throughout the world, but partners from throughout Africa that come down to our center. And our programs really have three bases to them, looking at the biology of the cheetah. And back in the early 80s, much of my early research was understanding the lack of genetic diversity of the cheetah. It actually escaped a population bottleneck and extinction around the Pleistocene. So we continually monitor what's going on with the population genetically. Biologically, we do a lot of sample collection. When cheetahs are caught in trap cages, we're now stopping the capture and conflict and stopping illegal trade, which I'll talk about in a second, which has become one of the big problems that's facing these small populations of cheetahs. And we work closely with livelihoods and education. Now, understanding the biology and ecology of the cheetah is baseline, I think, as you've heard with our other partners, to actually understanding more about species survival. But for the cheetah being an animal that does lack genetic diversity, understanding its biology continually is what we have done. Worked on over 900 cheetahs. Most of those cheetahs we've been able to actually right away put them back out into the wild as an animal that was not a problem animal. We've got huge data collection sets, over 2,500 samples of blood, tissues. We bank down sperm. We're banking embryos. So it's a big research center that we are actually dealing with. I'd like to say it's in the heart of Africa where we do make all of our own electricity. So it would be like you going to a Stanford University, except without things like electricity and thorn bushes all around you. We also use satellite collars. When we've had a long-term study know where the cheetah is living, how it lives, and this has been the basis of a lot of our ecology work and looking at our research. Our satellite collars, we've got 7 cats collared right now. I think over a 15-year period, on nearly 20 years, we've tracked and followed over 70 cats. And these are satellite collars that allow us to actually follow the cats regularly, so I can be following when I'm here, knowing that we usually get 5 points a day to know where the cheetahs are. And then if they're in a cluster, that means that they probably made a kill. We can go in and understand what the habitat looks like, what they've killed. And in each one of those small white squares are a farm of about 10,000 acres. And so a cheetah is covering, I like the red one in the middle, that is about 15 to 20 farms, all about 10,000 acres each. So they have some of the largest home ranges of any of the species on Earth as we look at looking at long-term conservation studies. But understanding that allowed us then to understand more exclusively on how to find out more about how cheetahs were living, how they are out in these marking trees. Cheetah go to play trees, and we study those play trees and understand what makes a play tree. There's a lot of bush and very few trees that a cheetah can get into. They're an animal that doesn't have sharp claws, so when they go into a tree, they look more like a dog than they do kind of a cat. They're a little bit wobbly up in there. But it's all about scent, and that's where they often will also leave their scat. This is Mati Nkemwa, and Mati has been he's our research and ecology director at CCF. He was here last year and has been to WCN several times and got his master's through the support of WCN. And he's got a camera trap in his hand. And this next picture, I'm going to show you a bit about what camera traps look like. They're marking. Other animals are there. There's going to be a leopard that might poop. Some other antelope that come through. So camera traps provide us a lot of information on not just the cheetah, the other predators and the other species that are all within these areas. But I thought that you'd enjoy kind of a day at a play tree. We have camera trap surveys. We're looking at our cheetah populations that we look at over an annual period in not only our area, but in a couple of the other areas in Namibia as well. And then count lots and lots of spots on camera trap photos. We also use detection dogs, and the dogs then go out and help find scat for us. And scat to biologists is, we call it black gold. It's wonderful. We use it first in our genetics lab to help us look at population studies, but then we can also look at it under a microscope to look at the hair, to find out what the cheetah's eaten, to look at parasitology or hormones. So a lot of different studies revolve around scat. And Finn is a border collie, and Tiger is a Springer Spaniel, and Isha is a 3/4 Anatolian. Each one of them play a role in our scat detection. And Tiger is our hot dog. He's the one that goes out in the field most. Isha's trained to actually tell you. She'll sit there and say, it's a cheetah, she'll sit. If it's a leopard, she'll walk by it. If it's a jackal, she'll walk by it. If it's a cheetah, she sits. So it's very nice. And then we do have biologists that work with the dogs, and they actually control the dogs to know where they're going. That's Stephanie, and she was one of our interns from Michigan. And then once we get the scat, it comes into our genetics lab, and the pictures, again, have been identified. We know which cat it is through the spot patterns, and then we can go back in and say, wow, the scat was collected on this day. What does the camera trap picture look like, and who are those cheetahs? And so through our genetic lab, we end up with fingerprints, and we can identify the difference in those fingerprints. And our genetics lab is really important. And we've just been given a new gene sequencer. And these gene sequencers, if you are geneticists, know how important they are. It's in the middle, that we kind of worship it. It's a 4-capillary machine. Lucia in the orange is one of our master's students from University of Namibia. Anne on the right is chief geneticist, and she's been here oftentimes at WCN as well. Fabiano, who's sticking his head in the back, has just finished his PhD in population genetics, and he's also been funded by partnerships with WCN. Bruce Brewer is our general manager and spends most of his time in Namibia making sure everything works. So, you know, the computer doesn't work, call Bruce. The electricity doesn't work, call Bruce. It's all generator run. And then the guy who donated the machine from Thermo Fisher, who set it up, is on the right side as well. But I just want to recognize a company like that has helped us. And we are, outside of Johannesburg and Pretoria, the only working genetics lab. Kenya started getting one going in Nairobi. But we now are bringing people in from other countries to help run their genetic samples as well. A bit about the illegal pet trade. And this is a driver for species extinction. And we're seeing that cubs are caught in northern part of Kenya, Somaliland, Ethiopia, and then they're transported illegally into the Middle East. And for every one cat that might make it into captivity, we probably lose 5 or more. And we've been trying to deal with this by helping confiscate the animals, getting them into appropriate facilities in Ethiopia. Born Free's developed a facility there. And we've been spending time up in the UAE working with appropriate and good sheikhs, like Sheikh Booty in the top here, who's actually developed a very, very legitimate and good breeding center for cheetahs and well recognized. And then working with them and several of the other organizations in the UAE, this past year they allowed us to come in and actually bank down some of these rarest animals, animals that have not been banked and stored. And this is the team, one of the teams we worked with. They're in the UAE. These are desert cheetahs. They come, and we don't know much about their genetics, where they're from. Many of them have been confiscated, but we were able to bank their blood as well as tissues and sperm from 18 males. And that now is banked there at their centers. We trained over 35 of their biologists in 8 different facilities. So we're really proud of the work that we've been able to help with the people up in the UAE. They play a very key role. It's a problem, but they can also be a solution. Well, that's Jacquemina and Savannah. And I think Shandy, the other cub's probably asleep under a tree. Shandy's not as lively as little Savannah, the cub, is. But Jacquemina had been one of our orphan cheetahs. And we do have a sanctuary. We've been able to put over 600 cheetahs back out into the wild. Most of them were just all wildcats, could easily go back out in the wild. But with orphan animals for the last 10 years, we've been working at what are the best cats, who are the right candidates to go back out into the wild, and could we actually repopulate other areas in Africa or Asia where the cheetahs were once found. And Jacquemina came in when she was about 8 months of age. As I said, they live with their mom until they're about 18 to 22 months, so you have to grow them up. They live out in large enclosures, 200 acres. They got lots of exercise. They're in the middle of the bush. And then we select certain animals that have the right disposition, pretty nasty and hate us. We select those to go back out in the wild. We're basically working mostly with female cheetahs because we think that they have the best chance. From the females, we will then collar them, put them out into a training camp, follow them closely to make sure that they are learning how to hunt. And as they then are hunting, we can go backwards. They don't really want anything to do with us. But in that period of time, we are supplementally feeding them and maintaining their health. And then from that, Savannah's a great story. She was born from a wild father. But Jacquemina got pregnant out in the wild and had this litter of cubs. And so it's pretty exciting, and that's really what a reintroduction success would be, is that they are reproducing and going back out into the wild. So conservation really is about big land use planning. And we have to look at very large land use, and our research has gone into conservation. And we've got lots of great young students that we've been working with throughout Namibia, and I want to introduce Burton, who's with me from, thank you, Burton. And he always reminds me, I've known him since he was 10. I guess you said 9, right? And Burton actually, in 2004, got a scholarship to go to a high school here. From then he got a scholarship to go into university here. and now he's on a scholarship at a university in Monterey doing his master's degree. And he comes back and forth to Namibia. But I think, and I keep telling Burton, he is going to be, you know, if not the president of Namibia one day, then maybe the foreign minister, Minister of Environment. And Namibia is probably one of the leading countries in all of Africa. We've got very forward-thinking conservation programs revolving around community-based conservation. And one of the programs we're working very closely with is the Greater Waterberg Landscape. And it's this huge area here around the Waterberg Plateau Park, which is a national park. We've got wild dogs in these areas. We've got cheetahs in the area. We've got community-based programs that are learning about future farmers of Africa, livestock guarding dogs, how to train the farmers into actually reducing the livestock impact. We've got great partners that we're working with in Kenya as well that I'd like you to know about. And now from that, it's the Meru also conservation program. Working together with reducing the conflict with the tour operators and working with the local communities. So community work is a big part of the work that we do. We also breed and raise livestock guarding dogs. And when we started the program in the middle 90s, we've now placed over 500 of these dogs. We've helped programs in South Africa get going with dogs, Botswana. Now we're working with our partners in Tanzania. Last year we had 4 puppies go into this area. We're looking at trying to help protect dogs, protect the livestock from lions. The dogs are doing well, and of the litter that was just born a few days ago, we've got another 6 puppies that are going to be going up into Tanzania. And what they do is they protect the livestock. They bark loudly and they say, "I'm big, leave me alone." But it's all about training the farmers. Farmers and good management. And also looking at livelihoods. This past year we've developed, several years, have developed a creamery where we're now bringing food science students in and teaching them about making goat cheeses. Instead of just killing your goats and eating them, you can then use them for good protein, and our cheese is really great. Habitat and prey are very important. And we continue with our restoration program. So from that thickened thorn bush, which has caused a lot of problems for cheetahs, and our years of work have, we make a bush block, which is an eco-log, which has won us a lot of awards. It's a ground up thick thorn bush that burns with low heat and high emissions. But we're now looking at the potential of biomass power. And we're really looking for partners in this, partners who are interested in helping power Africa with small-scale biomass operations. And we're looking at trying to get some going in the Greater Waterberg Landscape that will clear habitat, put people to work, and actually be beneficial for everybody. So we study all the different array of wildlife. These are all found in our backyard. And these are all mainly great prey species for the cheetah and the other predators that we also study. So we actually study an entire ecosystem in every aspect of the work that we do. And we do it with a lot of partners, and our partners are global, and we have thousands of school children that come and work with us each year. A year ago when I was here, I ended up with one of our main centers being burned, and we're now trying to recreate our center, and we're quite worried about it. This is what the view is going to look like. We're going to have the genetics lab up in there. We want to have it solar and not thatch. It was a lightning strike that hit that actually took out most all of our educational materials. But it reminds me that we can make a difference. And we welcome visitors to come down and work with us, volunteers on a regular basis. Keep involved, go to our Facebook page, and remember that what you're sharing with us means a lot because we're all over there trying to save, in my opinion, the cheetah and change the world. Thank you.